Okay, I currently have the weirdest setup ever because I couldn't find a tripod or anything to use, and I'm home now, so I have a different desk. It's a really weird setup. My sister helped me with it, so yeah, this'll work. So I'm going to talk about one of my favorite decks that I have, my Kraken deck, my EDH deck. It's the first one I built mostly by myself. It was a lot of fun to build because I wanted it to be sea creature themed. So every card in here relates to the sea. For the most part. There are like a couple exceptions, I guess, but I was very strict about what creatures I would put in. Before Prophet of Krufix got banned, I refused to put it in this deck, even though it would have been killer in this deck, because it wasn't a sea creature in any way. So I couldn't do it. That was dumb. This is my commander. Prime Speakers, again, originally I chose it just for color. And for a sea creature. I was gonna do Varel, but my friends were immediately like, no, you gotta do Prime Speaker, she's the best. And she is really good. I don't always play her. Usually if I'm playing her, it's like an afterthought, but she's really good. Yeah, she's really good. You play her when you've got big things out, especially in this deck, when you'll see I'll be playing really big things. She gets very big, and she's big, and that's great, but for the most part, it's the card draw that's really great. That's my commander. I have a lot of non-basic lands. I think more than half the lands are non-basic lands. I'm not going to go through everything in the deck because it is an EDH deck, unlike my last deck tech, which was a standard 60 card. So we're just going to go through like the notable strategies and some of my favorite cards. So here are some non-basics that are the best in here, basically. I've got yeah, Arcane Lighthouse, which gets rid of Shroud and Hexproof. Really good in EDH. This is basically Scry. It's just Scry, but not called Scry. And it's one of the ways I control what goes into my hand, which in this deck, there's a lot of scrying in this deck, which that's why I have Temple of Mystery also. It's a lot of scrying, so I can control when I get the lands, when I get the other things that I need in the deck, so I can play the big things as soon as possible. And of course, for Nuclear Tower, because there's a lot of card draw and scrying, I want to be able to keep all of it in my hand. Okay, so half of this deck is mana ramp. Because all the things that I'm playing are very big. My commander's very big, and that's probably one of the smallest creatures in the deck. So half the deck is mana ramp, and I've got a lot of ways to do that. I've got Verdant Haven, which I enchant one of the lands, and it taps for an additional 1. I've got Rites of Flourishing, which everybody draws an extra card, everybody can play an extra land. Which benefits everyone, so it's also more likely to stay in the field the longest. Market Festival, which is even better than Verdant Haven, and for only 1 more mana. It's another enchant land, and it'll tap for 2 additional, so you tap 1 land for a total of 3 mana. Fork in the Road, new card, not bad. 1 land goes into your hand, the other into the graveyard. I have a lot of things that pull from the graveyard. So, well, not a lot of things, but I've got some things that pull from the graveyard, so that's not bad if I really need the land. I don't always really need the land. Natural Connection, that's just a basic one. And then I've got, you know, all the basic artifacts, and I've got a couple of Scry artifacts also. The basic artifacts for mana control. Because I need to get up as far as I can, as fast as I can. So, besides having a lot of mana, I also want as many ways to cheat out as many of the things as quickly as I can. I've got Ula's Temple, which is really great in this because it's a heavy creature deck and it's all Krakens and Leviathans and Octopuses and Serpents. That's the only creatures that are really in this, besides a couple of merfolk and a couple of jellyfish and stuff. So this is always a big help to get stuff out. It is a target for anything that'll get rid of enchantments because it'll help me get out things so easily. But, you know, you can't win them all. Savage Summoning, especially with new Kozilek being so big, because Kozilek can counter everything just by discarding a card. Play this card can't be countered, and the next creature card can be cast as though it had flash, and it can't be countered. And it enters with an additional 1/1, which the 1/1 is an added bonus, but it can't be countered is a big deal, and it enters as though it has flash. And I'm playing this for only 1, and now I can flash in an 11/11 if I want. I don't know if I have an 11/11 in this big stuff. Unexpected Results is always hilarious. Even if it's just getting more land, that's always great. Or getting any of these other instants or sorceries, always great. Creature, even better. And you can do it multiple times if you get lands. And then I have a lot of card draw, scry stuff, as I mentioned. I've got Fight in Thessa, I've got Dig Through Time is a big hit always. And Interpret the Signs. I actually really like Interpret the Signs. Okay, once I've got the big things out, another cool thing I do in this deck a lot is cloning. And lately I've been cloning opponents' creatures much more than my own, but when I manage to clone my own, it can be really funny. So I've got Altered Ego, one of the newer cards that I put in. Again, can't be countered is a big deal, and enters as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, not just my own, which is again really good, and it gets additional +1/+1 counters. And I'm only paying 4 for that, so I can put a lot into the +1/+1s and clone something big, so I'm getting something even bigger. Clever Impersonator is good. It's a creature, so that makes it a lot better, I think, in terms of a lot of times when you make tokens, they get bounced really easily because they fizzle once they're in your hand. This is good because it'll bounce back to my hand and I can just clone something else when I play it. Mercutio Pretender, same kind of deal. This one's a little more costly, but I can also call it back if it's about to be destroyed or anything. I don't actually play this one this much. It is also the promo art, which is really nice. Stolen Identity. This card I have a hilarious story with, because it has Cipher, so basically I play it and then I attach it to a card. It's exiled, but it's encoded on a card. Whenever that creature does combat damage, I activate the card again. I ciphered this onto a Colossal Whale, which I believe has Island Walk, and I ended up cloning it 4 times before the card was dealt with. And that was a lot of fun. I have Clone Legion, which lately I've been playing more as a defensive mood rather than cloning my own side of the board, but you can imagine if I have several Krakens out and then I clone all of my Krakens, that'll be pretty good. It doesn't work as well all the time because I do have the Tromokratus and Lorthos, and those are both legendary, so they'll just kill themselves once the clone enters the battlefield. But I can also use it if I'm being attacked. Actually, that's on instant speed, so I can't use it when I'm being attacked, but before I'm attacked, I can clone my opponent's side of the battlefield, and I'll have copies of whatever threats I see. It is really costly, but again, like I explained, half of this deck is mana ramp, so I can easily pay for that within a few turns. And I've got Supplement Form, which A, bounces, and B, gives me a clone. I can use this on myself if I need. I can use this on an opponent. I've used this on myself, my own creatures a couple of times, if they've been like arrested or something, and I need to get them off the field so I can get rid of whatever they're enchanted with. I get them back. I get a copy and I get them back, so that's cool. So that's the other part of my deck. So now I've got things to clone with. I've got lots of mana ramp. Here's some of the big things that I'm putting in my deck. Tromokratus. He was almost the commander for this deck when I decided to go into green for the mana ramp abilities. Lots of fun. It has hexproof only when it's attacking or blocking, so it can be dealt with other times, but it's still really fun there. And it can't be blocked unless everything is blocking it, which it's an 8/8, so even if they can do that a couple of times, it's wiping out a big part of their board. Shipbreaker Kraken, Monstrosity. I really like Monstrosity for this deck, because I start out with a big thing and I make it even bigger. And that's a lot of fun. And, you know, I tap things, so now I have a 6/6 that I can make monstrous, and I'll tap all your things so you can't do anything about it. Breaching Leviathan is good against certain matchups. It taps all non-blue creatures. The unfortunate thing is that includes my own, so any green creatures I have on the field will also tap, but I think I've only got a couple of those, unless I've cloned from my opponents. Other than that, it's a 9/9 for 9. Not terrible. Stormtide Leviathan, really good, really fun. They're gonna kill it as soon as it hits the field, but if I have it and then I've cloned it a bunch of times, this is when a board wipe is most likely come on the field, when I've got Stormtide Leviathan. But it's got Island Walk, it makes everything island, so it'll hit everything, and things that don't fly or have Island Walk can't attack. The only thing you have to worry about then is the flyers, which I've added a few things in here to deal with the flyers, and I'll get to those. Another fun Kraken. It's got hexproof. I can draw cards if my commander's out, mostly just for Krakens. Here's a flyer that I've added. It's a Leviathan. It enters with +1/+1, so it can be as small or as big as I need it to be if I'm crushed for mana at the time, but I really need a flying creature out. I can put it out for 4, and I've got a 2/2 blocker at the very least. The only problem here, I believe, if I'm getting my rules right, is cloning it won't work because there won't be any counters on it, so it'll die immediately. I think, anyway, that the counters don't clone. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me, because it'd be great to clone that constantly, too. Here's a really good flyer. Flying, Trample, and Shroud. Shroud isn't as good as Hexproof, but still really good. Also, the art on this is badass. And it's a 6/6 for 7. That's not bad. Scourge of the Fleets. Yeah. It has its place. In this deck, it's a little weird because I won't have a lot of pure islands on the field. I'll have mostly non-basics, and I'll have my artifacts out, and I'll have my little enchantments out. So X maybe 4 or 5, but it's another annoying card. And if I can bounce this and do it multiple times, even better. Sea Luck Monster is annoying. It's good to be in the deck. It's a 5/5. Once I get on the field, I can clone it. If anything, it's a big blocker. Once I can make it monstrous, though, like it can't attack unless defending player controls an island, and so it's good if Stormtide Leviathan is out. Everything's an island, great. But if this is out and I don't have islands, I have to make it monstrous first, which is another, 5, 6, 7 mana. And one other land will become an island if nobody controls an island on the field, which I usually play in multiplayer games, so it's not great, but like I said, at the very least, it's a 5/5 blocker. Inkwell Leviathan, Island Walk, Trample, Shroud, 7/11. It's really good. It's really fun. The art's really cool. People get really mad when I play it. I can't even pronounce this. Cataract Leviathan. This one has saved me a couple times. I've done I've done some dumb moves with it a couple of times. When it enters, all non-land permanents go to owner's hands, and I can unearth it, so I can do that again. I have to be careful playing this here because it'll hurt me a lot if it gets rid of all of my artifacts and my enchantments. I'll just have to play them all again, which usually I can do. If I play this card in a pinch, it'll have to be worth it to get rid of my opponent's board. Colossal Whale, like I mentioned, really, really, really fun card, especially when there's 4 of them on your side of the field and no one knows what to do about that. You exile a bunch of cards, basically. Fun stuff. And Island Walk is always fun. Deep Sea Kraken, 6/6, can't block, but you can suspend it for 9. Just suspend it for 9. Suspend it for 3 and wait 9 spells. Your opponent has to play 9 spells, and then you get it for 3, basically, instead of paying the huge mana cost. I have cast it outright before. It's fun also just having it on the field and watching your opponent play spells and slowly tick down the suspend counter. This isn't a suspend deck, but it's a good card, and it's fun. And Lorthos, he was also almost one of my commanders. He's an 8/8 for 8. If you pay 8 when he attacks, you tap 8 permanents. They don't untap next time. So that's 16 damage you're gonna do unless they can deal with him. He's another one where he's gonna be on the field and he's gonna be a target as soon as he's on the field, but he's a lot of fun. So those are all the big things. There's a lot of other things in this deck that I really like, so here's a bunch of cards that I put in the deck and I thought were worth mentioning, fun things that I really like. Elixir of Immortality's in the deck. It's a good card to have in most decks, I think. It's life gain, and you get your graveyard back, and you shuffle your library if you need. Whelming Wave, you return all creatures except Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, Serpents. So that's most of my side of the field will be fine. There'll be a couple things that aren't, but for the most part, my Krakens, my Leviathans, they're on the field for good. Everyone else gets wiped away. It's a really funny card. Yeah. Crush the Tentacles I put in here also because it's another return all non-land permanents, which can hurt me, but if I pay the surge cost, I also get an 8/8 Octopus, which will mean I'm the only one with a creature on the field immediately. So that's fun. Cyclonic Rift is one of my favorite cards of all time. I love the art. I love the flavor text. It's really fun. I really like Overload cost also, which it's a 7 to sweep all non-land permanents I don't control, which is great because I'll have to keep all my stuff and everyone else loses their stuff. And 7 is not a big mana cost for this deck, as you've seen. I've got Planeswalkers. I've got both Kioras. Fun, and I recently added Teferi also, so I can be untapping my big creatures after I swing with them. Kiora's Follower, I have the full art, and it's just really pretty, and I really like it. Single Starfish is one of my favorite cards. I'm kidding. It's a chump blocker if I need one, and mostly it's for Scry. It becomes pretty irrelevant once I get Thassa out. Thassa, what can you say about Thassa? It's an indestructible for 3. It's Scry before upkeep, target creature can't be blocked, and my Devotion to Blue gets up pretty quickly because of how big all the Krakens and Leviathans are, so it also becomes a 5/5 creature, which is another huge thing that I want in the deck. Chasm Skulker, how can you not have Chasm Skulker in a Kraken deck? It's a squid technically, but it's a Kraken in my heart. Especially in a deck with so much card draw. Card draw, I get +1/+1, so I'm gonna die, so I get several tiny squids, which is fantastic. And actually one of my favorite creatures, Reform, just because it's so funny, and I have the tokens for it also. When this dies, it's a 0/1. So the hardest part about having this in the deck is getting people to kill this card. It's a 0/1, but when it dies, I get a 3/3, and then when that dies, I get a 6/6, and when that dies, I get a 9/1 Kraken. 9/9 Kraken, not a 9/1 Kraken. So it's just really fun. It's probably one of my favorite cards of all time. Right up there with Cyclonic Rift. And that's, for the most part, that's my Kraken deck. I call it Beware the Deep. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't win all the games, but it's won a couple. It's the first deck where I was the threat player once I started playing it. It was the first deck where I was suddenly in my play group and they were suddenly like, wow, Dimitri's got a huge field. We're gonna have to deal with that. Before this, I had a mill commander deck, which is still not really great, but fun to play for me still. And that was more like I was a little nuisance at the end of the table that was sometimes doing things, but never had anything that we really had to worry about. This deck gives them things to worry about, and honestly, that was such a great feeling. So that's Beware the Deep. I will put the tapped out link in the description, but I don't know how up to date that is because I've been editing my decks on the fly a lot. So that might not be totally up to date, but that's the basics of my deck. Advice, things you like, you want to play Commander sometime, let me know. Please leave comments. I crave attention. Bye.